Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Ramblings from Two Meddling Kids. I'm one of your hosts, Edward Hunt, with my friend
Mike Cunningham.
and we are the Meddling Kids. Today, we'll be revisiting an old story in a new light, and that is Scrooged, A Christmas Carol that just released on Netflix. For those of you just joining us, how we like to do our podcast is we give you first a spoiler-free review, what we think of it without really giving any plot details. Granted, if you don't know Christmas Carol's plot, I'm kind of questioning that, but hey. But give you a spoiler-free review, followed by just background on the movie itself, and then give you a play-by-play. So the thought is, if you haven't seen this movie yet, listen to the first 5-10 minutes. Maybe that'll help decide whether or not it's worth you to see this movie. And then if you want to keep listening and potentially have it spoiled or revisit it after you watch the movie, we'd love to have you. Mike, you ready to get started?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Give us a spoiler-free review, please.
So Scrooge, A Christmas Carol basically tells the same story of A Christmas Carol you've seen, hundreds of times at this point. It's interesting that they have like a new Scrooge or A Christmas Carol telling every year. It's like, how many times are you going to tell the story? But it was fine.
Yeah.
If I had to give a rating, I'd say 2.
Okay.
The animation left something to be, desired. It was very much like a PlayStation 3 cutscene.
A bad PlayStation 3 cutscene. There's some good graphics.
God of War wasn't there.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I think the animation was weird, which is interesting because I'll give you some background on the studio that did it.
Okay.
The story really, it didn't add anything new. I guess I haven't seen one that was more musical than this one.
Okay.
I mean, It opens up with a musical. There's a bunch of different numbers kind of illustrating the story that they're trying to tell, which were, I guess, fine if they weren't like memorable songs or anything like that. The voice acting was just fine. I think it's interesting who they got.
Yeah.
But, nothing crazy there. Yeah, I think obviously the Disney did it better with like Mickey Mouse.
Oh, yeah.
Even Jim Carrey's was, I think, I think when Jim Carrey's, it's always
It's a sight to behold.
Yeah. But so it's been done better. They didn't really rewrite do anything drastically different with this one. 2.
Yeah. Before I give my reviews, I'm going to go a little bit of background. I love A Christmas Carol. I do. Like the story of A Christmas Carol, it's a classic. I've had multiple Christmases where I've watched 4 or 5 Christmas Carol movies, over the course. I think my wife, Felicia, we watched, 3 or 4 different ones last season. So I really enjoy A Christmas Carol story. So I'm going to review this 2 different, I'll give it 2 numbers. One is a pure children's movie, right? If it's a pure children's movie, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. Just for kids. Like eventually when I have kids, if I'm going to introduce them to A Christmas Carol, I'm cool with this one because it's not scary. Kids like songs. There's a bunch of little zany critters and antics going on. So cool. If I'm going to give it like a movie or a Christmas Carol movie, I'm going to give it like a 1.5. That's kind of my thought process with it is watching it. A lot of the songs leave a lot to be desired. I think they take it from a Scrooge with the musical, which was a 1970 production.
Okay.
So there were like covers of those songs, but then they did more with it. But I wasn't really impressed by a single song. Some of the character changes, and they tried to connect a lot of stuff with the movie. Yeah. And I was like, no, I don't like these connections.
It was very did you ever see Crash?
Crash. It's been a long time.
But it was like how all those stories kind of, even though it was one city, but they all connected. And then some of it seemed forced. That's what this was.
It literally felt like that. They were just like, no, there needs to be a reason for everything. I think that's like a modern storytelling thing is they want stuff to be very connected versus you get like an older movie and it's just like, no, it's 15 minutes there. Done. Keep it moving.
Well, I think it's because if there's a connection in older movies, holy shit.
Yeah.
This one it was like, oh, that too?
That too. Exactly. Like, oh, of course, the blah, blah, blah with the blah, blah, blah is also the blah, blah, blah. Duh. So yeah, that was my thought is if you have young kids and they have never been introduced to A Christmas Carol, this is a fine one for them. Because also, some of those old Christmas carols are scary.
They
are terrible. Like, I remember seeing the old Sir Patrick Stewart one with my dad when I was a kid. And then that was literally, I was 7. That scared me. Literally the ghost in that scared me. So as a one for a small child, hey, have the sparkly lights. But if you like Christmas Carol movies or you have ones you prefer, like the Sir Patrick Stewart or the Muppets one, those are still way, way better. And I would highly recommend that.
I think they're able to add heart. Yes, I think what it is.
Yeah,
mainly because obviously you have Muppets or like you said, Jim Carrey, Mickey Mouse. Like, you love those characters and is able to bring that heart to it. I think this one tried with like obviously the Tiny Tim stuff. Yeah, his sister, like just different things that. But since you already know it, but it was still like it just didn't. You didn't really connect.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then the animation, some of it, I thought. I mean, that's a common animation thing now. Like with this.
See, I think it's the studio. So it's like I did like Jacob Marley, like his introduction. Yeah. The Ghost of Yet to Come, like that transformation was cool. Yeah, I think some of the transformations for the Ghost were really cool. Yeah, but other stuff was like very like, is this PBS like straight to DVD? Like,
yeah, a little.
Because what do they spend money on if the because it's all animation? So how do you not spend put most of your money to that?
Yeah. Quick pause. Speaking of money, a word from our sponsors. Me. Good. Thank you. That's all with the transitions. No, but Edward Hunt here. I'm a real estate agent in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I'm on the Just Be team of Compass. And if you're looking to buy or sell a home, we would love to help you out. So please feel free to reach out to us. And even if you're not living in DC, Maryland, or Virginia, but if you live anywhere in the United States, Compass is a countrywide brokerage, and we have a ton of fantastic agents all over the place that would love to help you out. So feel free to reach out to me, and I can connect you with any of them. And then also for anyone else, if you are looking to have a product that you want us to try and like hawk in our smooth, silky voices, please feel free to reach out as well. All right, Mike, let's get some background. What money did the studio spend on this movie?
That's funny. I didn't get a budget on this. So Scrooge, A Christmas Carol came out December 2nd, 2022. Directed by Stephen Donnelly. He has not too many, I think 2 or 3 films directed, all animated with the same kind of... the animation is very lackluster. Okay. I'll give it to that. I'll give it that. So this might have been the biggest budget he's had over his career. Starring Luke Evans as Scrooge, Olivia Colman as the Ghost of Christmas Past, Jessie Buckley as Isabel, who is Scrooge's former fiance. Jonathan Pryce as Jacob Marley, and then I think you have Jonathan Flynn as Cratchit, but I'm not really familiar with his work. Like I said, some trivia for this one. It was Timeless Films is who produced it in association with Axis Studios. And it's interesting because like if you look at Timeless Films filmography, it is very much movies like that look like this. Gotcha. So like it's very computer animated, like from 2006 or something like that. Yeah. Like none of the films like you would have actually seen. But Axis Studios is interesting because of the fact that like they're awarded. So like they did shorts on Love, Death, and Robots. They did in the Tall Grass. Helping Hand. I don't know if you remember that one. That was a big one. I feel like that one almost won an award. The astronaut who had to break off.
Yes.
So they did. Absolutely. Axis Studio did that. They've done stuff with Magic the Gathering. Diablo.
Great card game. Great video game.
Halo. Destiny. So it was Axis Studios has a great filmography, but a great portfolio when it comes to animation. So I guess you can see that a lot of this animation is a lot sharper than some of the other timeless films filmography. So I will say I guess Axis Studio did boost it up in a way. But it was still kind of lackluster in the animation department. So
there's a lot of like bright, shining, flashing colors and lights in here, and you could argue this is better animation than the Jim Carrey one because that had some kind of real what was that 2006-7 weird CGI, which like
it's interesting because Axis Studio did another Christmas Carol too. Not the Jim Carrey one, but they did a Christmas Carol like a more live action one. But so there's that. That's all. Rotten Tomatoes right now, I think as of today. But, I mean, it came out the 2nd, so it's been out a week.
Yeah, it's been out for a little bit. Yeah, people have got to review it.
Rotten Tomatoes, the Rotten Tomatoes scores are 31, but the audience scores are 72. So like, audience, I think, like you said, I think for kids, especially like with some of the scarier elements with the Jacob Marley, like depending on how you saw it, he can come in as scary because he is trying to scare his friend straight in a way. And then obviously the Ghost of Yet to Come. With it being kind of the representation of death, depending on how it's depicted in certain films, he can be very scary. So it's like for parents and like showing this to your children, I think maybe kids liked it.
Yeah.
I think the Ghost of Christmas Past is a very fun one.
Yeah.
You had the Ghost of Christmas Present, who was very kind of jolly, and stuff like that. So you like you said, it is very much for kids. Even like some of his henchmen, the Ghost of Christmas Present, the little elves, the sprites, or whatever it was, they were kind of funny in a way. So it was, I think it you can see why. It's 72, so it's not bad. It's not necessarily great, but I can see why the audience would have enjoyed this, especially this time of year.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And that's, again, I think what really that emphasizes is, again, Christmas Carol. If you want to watch a Christmas Carol movie, this isn't a terrible one to watch. There are some redeeming qualities of it, especially depending on who the audience is. However, I still think there are much better iterations of Christmas Carol, but that's just me. All right, so Christmas Carol, this plot. I've never heard of a Christmas Carol before. How does this plot go?
So Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, opens up with a musical number sang by Harry. I believe his last name is Huffman. Mm-hmm. He is Scrooge's nephew.
Yes.
And he's just going on throughout the town saying how much he loves Christmas. Mm-hmm. And you get introduced to some of the characters, I think Cratchit's children who are out. And it's just like you get to see this town. It's obviously Christmas, I believe Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm. They all love Christmas.
Everybody loves Christmas.
Yeah.
And then you get the title card, and then the Cratchit children are still singing, and behind them and kind of in the background, you see this dark shadow coming through an alley with a dog, and it is obviously Scrooge. And so like he kind of bumps into one of the Cratchit children. Her name started with a K. I think it was Karen. Or something.
There's like 8 of them.
Yeah, there were. But Cratchit had a bunch of kids.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, man. Like you're already
and a newborn too.
Yeah, dude.
But so what had happened? During the musical number in the opening scene, Harry had given Tiny Tim and his sister a coin. And so I guess they were holding up, and as Scrooge passed, he bumped into the little girl, and the coin fell and dropped into this like sewer grate.
Yeah.
So she goes to say, to tell him off.
Yeah.
And then he turns around and she realizes who it is. It's her. So one, I think I didn't realize you don't realize till later that's Bob Cratchit's daughter. So like that's kind of why she was taken aback by him. I just assumed like everybody saw Scrooge, you don't mess with that. So I think maybe it was a bit of both, but it was just like I didn't like. Obviously, later you find out that's her dad's boss, but like as soon as he turns around and she recognizes who it is, she was sorry, I didn't know that was you, Mrs. Scrooge.
Yeah,
kind of backs up, and then you also get to meet Scrooge's dog Prudence, who kind of gets along with Tiny Tim, which is weird to me because once again being introduced to this character, like going in blind, just not knowing anything, pretending like I don't know anything about the Christmas Carol, you would assume that this bad man, this antagonist of this town would have his dog would also like kind of reflect his attitude, but Prudence was like just playing with Tiny Tim, and it was like, and then Scrooge goes, I was like, don't lick that poor little boy, like you don't know where he's been, and I was like, Jesus, all right.
So with the dog, what were your thoughts on the dog in general?
Like I said, I think it was just a weird contrast between Scrooge's personality and the dog's personality. Yeah. And it was like I said, it was like I had never seen that character in any other iteration. So it was like, I guess, a nice ad, but then it was just confusing. And then, so I was like, oh, this must not, and then you find out a little bit later, it was like, oh, maybe that's not his dog. Yeah. And then it was like, but even so, I think it was weird. It was, like I said, it was a nice addition. If you're going to retell a story that's been told hundreds of times, make it your own. Either visually or story wise, or it's like obviously through the music, but it was just like it was a bit of a distraction, but I was like, I guess okay with it, but I had questions.
From a story perspective for me, Prudence is a lovable character, and Prudence provides comic relief in the movie. Prudence provides a more human aspect of Scrooge. Prudence adds a lot to the character. From a Christmas Carol perspective, Prudence makes no damn sense. Because Scrooge is supposed to be this miserly dude. Like, if you say, hey, don't be a Scrooge to someone, now people know that means, oh, he's like a cheapskate, grumpy old man, or like grumpy person.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because it was just like you had this man who was a loner for the most part because of his personality, who he is. And so how do you have a lovable dog and this miserly person? It was like, it doesn't make sense. Because you would assume that having to love something would rub off him, and it would strip away that meanness.
Yeah, and then I think that is something that with this movie goes into. Go for it.
But I guess I guess that doesn't really make sense because the Grinch had the same thing
Mm-hmm.
where he hated. I guess maybe he just hated Whoville or hated Christmas.
Yeah,
but he still had a dog that he loved. So it was just like I guess maybe you only love this one thing.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying.
But yeah, and like, with that, it was just such a because actually the Grinch point is a really good point, and that he has the dog, and that is like I actually didn't think of it in that light because now I'm thinking. I mean, first off, I love the classic Dr. Seuss The Grinch. You know, the 30-minute and like 2D animation. That's my favorite Grinch, and he did because that was a mean, nasty guy, but he still had the dog. Granted, he was mean to the dog, but he still had that dog. Yeah. Scrooge is nice to the dog, and I think. They just really tried, and I'll talk about this later when there's other examples. They really try to humanize him more before he even has any redemption going on through the ghosts. They're already trying to like humanize this guy much more.
But that's a big thing in like either currently now is like you can't have a villain. Yeah, they need to be layered. They need to have some kind of backstory, some reasoning as to why. But it was just like you can't have that and they still be the villain.
Exactly, because then you start feeling for him for the. So even though it's a dog, and like as American people, if you see a dog, you immediately kind of like somebody. It's just how we're wired. So you see this guy, and you're like, oh, he's nasty. Oh, but he's got a dog. He can't be that bad. Literally, I had that thought, and I'm like, no, this is Scrooge, man. Like we can like him at the end after you need to build to that. But yeah, you build to that. Yeah. But yeah, so. Scrooge comes in, knocks stuff over. He says, "Hey, dog, get it. Stop licking the poor boy. We don't know where he's been."
And then you see him kind of making his rounds. He's like collecting because he's the banker.
He's a businessman.
So he's collecting money that people owe him, and he's also avoiding Harry, his nephew, who was the one that did the opening number. And Harry finally catches up with him. And he's just kind of following him through the town. So like Scrooge has an interaction with these ladies who are trying to collect money. They're caroling and try to collect money. He has an interaction with them.
Charity.
He goes to collect money from Tom. I can't remember his last name. Jenkins, I believe.
The toy maker guy?
Yes,
toy maker guy.
So Tom owes him like 25 shillings or whatever.
Or pounds. Pounds. We're in Old England. Pounds here, all right?
It's a coin-based currency. So yeah, he goes to collect money from Tom Jenkins, and Tom says, "Oh, I would have had the money yesterday, but I had to, give it to my mom for medicine."
Excuses.
Everybody in old England is just sick as shit.
Well, they all have tuberculosis. I'm pretty, you go back in like the 1800s when Charles Dickens wrote this, and people were just dying from tuberculosis.
It was the amount of people that were just like this close to death was like insane.
Constantly that.
And he says he would have had the money, but he can have it in 3-4. Give me a week.
Yeah.
And Scrooge is like, all right, so I'll give you until Boxing Day, which is 2 days.
Boxing Day is 26.
But he's doubling what he owes him. So like Tom is like, shit, now I owe you £50 in 2 days.
For the record, that's illegal. All right, so you can't do that. All right, that's not how business works. All right.
So then finally, I think they get to Scrooge's. So he has an interaction with like some of the orphans. They're putting up signs everywhere.
Stupid orphans.
They're putting up signs everywhere, and he's like frustrated by the signs about like I guess some Christmas pageant or something like that. Christmas pageant.
Yeah.
So he goes into his office, and then you meet Bob Cratchit, who's there as his assistant working. And Harry has beat him to his office somehow because Prudence knows a shortcut or something like that. And for the X amount of time, like, because I guess he asked, his uncle this every Christmas, will you come to dinner with me and my family? Like me and my family, you're the only family that I have. Yeah. And it pains me, and it would pain my mother, who is also passed, that we're family. We spend Christmas apart. Yeah. And then you have Harry mentioning, he's, says it's disappointing that we don't spend time together. And Scrooge says, well, life is full of disappointments. Yep. And then you get kind of backstory in their relationship, and you find out that Harry's mother died giving birth to him on Christmas. Yeah. So, sorry.
Well, I was just thinking, is like, did that? I'm trying to remember, and like I know I say I watch a lot of Christmas Carol, but I can't. That was unique to this movie,
and that's what I think. I didn't get a chance to look further into it, like some of the nuances of this one versus the original story. Or
I'm pretty sure this is unique to this movie,
which is
okay. Yeah, which is okay.
Because it was like that would give you backstory on why he hates Christmas.
Yeah, it gives it backstory on why he hates Christmas and why he hates Harry, and you're like, okay, but we're still like we're giving.
And I think that's what's interesting because you said it's a kids movie, but that gives it something deeper for like that's an adult. A very adult themed thing that had this it's ire for someone because of the fact that they're here and somebody else isn't.
Yeah.
And you blame them for that. Mm-hmm. Like, that's some Tyrion Lannister shit. Like,
yeah. fair. True.
But yeah, so you get this where he's like really kind of putting down his nephew. Mm-hmm. I think you find out that Harry just he got married, and Scrooge wasn't able to make the wedding.
Of course, because he wouldn't go to anything.
Yeah. But he was hoping for Scrooge to meet his new wife.
Yeah.
And Scrooge just really just says, the fact that you're here and your mother isn't, I know we don't need to.
Which, more power to Harry for trying this, man. Like, that is wrong. If you have a dude talk, like, it's one thing, I think, in past iterations of Christmas Carol, where it's just, no, yes, my mother's dead now, but, I knew her, you knew her, it's not my fault, and he kept trying. But to have a dude tell you, he probably tells him this every Christmas. Yeah. Every Christmas, I bet Scrooge lets him know, he's like, hey, I hate you because you killed your mother in childbirth, so not his fault. But that'd be rough. I think
it was a shining light to see that Harry didn't take that.
Mm-hmm.
On the chin, it was just like he was like, well, I still love you. I still want you to come.
Yeah.
And then he says farewell to Prudence. He says farewell to Bob.
Yeah.
And it was just like, Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. And like I said, I think this is maybe more an adult telling of it.
Yeah.
Or, an adult backstory.
Yeah.
And then you get it where I think Bob realizes it's the end of the day and he needs his
money.
His money, which is 15 shillings. And I'll never know the pounds versus the shillings versus the pence.
Yeah. You don't know your 1800 England conversion rates, sir? Like, come on, they taught us this in school. They didn't. I don't know.
But he owes Bob 15 shillings.
Yes.
He puts it on the table and takes away 5 because when Scrooge had come into the office, he slammed the door and Bob had spilled some ink.
Yes.
And now Scrooge is charging him for that.
It wasn't high quality ink. They're grinding down sapphire and they're mixing it in with the ink here. All right, really, it's Cratchit's fault. All right.
And but Cratchit once again just takes on his chin because 10 shillings is better than nothing.
True.
And then so he goes outside and you see Tiny Tim and his sister. I cannot remember her name. Is it Kara?
Sure,
something like
it's Kara now. Kate, little girl, your name is now Kara. We have decreed.
And this is where you see the first. And Scrooge is obviously watching outside of his window, and this is where you see the carolers and the people collecting money. You see the orphans again. They've made a snowman that looks like him, and they're mocking him.
Yeah.
There's a couple, just kind of
making out.
Yeah. And then you see Bob and his kids, and so first you see Tiny Tim collapse, and his dad goes over and says, just breathe, because he's coughing and stuff like that. And then they had made some money because they were caroling. He had made some money because he got paid, and he was you could just see him being very enthusiastic and kind of seeing the silver lining in a lot of things.
Yeah. It
was just like, well, with the money you've made and the money I made, we'll have a great Christmas type of thing.
Yeah.
And you see Scrooge watching all of this. And it was like, this is what I'm saying is with what you learn about him and his backstory is just seeing Bob going through what he's going through with his son being sick and Scrooge not you're like, so what's going on? What's the hold up here?
Yeah. Because with Scrooge, too, even at this moment when Scrooge is watching all this happen, you can see he feels bad for a second.
Yeah.
Scrooge has a brief instant of feeling kind of bad. We have humanized Scrooge much more than we've ever humanized Scrooge in A Christmas Carol before.
But he's humanized him so much, it was like, why does he need to go through the trial?
Literally, he's on the cusp. He has the 5 shillings he didn't take from that he took from Cratchit in his hand, and he looks at it and looks up, and he's like, oh, actually, he had the thought of just going out that door and handing the money. He 100% did. And I'm like, that's not the Scrooge I know.
Yeah.
Not my Scrooge.
I feel like hashtag not my ex is a universal thing for the past 5 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good or bad. Another thing I did know before we move on is so Bob and his kids, right before they actually head home, they stand and watch the carolers sing.
Yes.
And Bob gives away one of the pounds that he was giving, and his daughter's like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, this girl's with the shit." She was like, "Motherfucker, we are hungry. What are you doing?"
Exactly. You literally just said Tiny Tim needs medicine, and you just gave away.
And I thought that was interesting because it was like, what does that say about Bob? Yeah. Obviously, Bob is just like, obviously we're struggling, but it was like you still find a way to give.
Yeah.
But his daughter was just like, that is cute on paper, sir.
Yeah.
That is precious. But in theory, get your shit together.
Yeah, Cratchit's dumb.
You got 14 kids at the house.
And you're trying to feed them, and you're like, we don't have enough money. And then you're just giving away your money. Dude, No, come on, man, be better. But yeah.
So then Scrooge walks home, and we get another number. I think he's just singing about wanting to be left alone.
He's just, I hate Christmas. I'm unhappy. Everyone else should be unhappy. Very petulant child song. Mm-hmm.
And then as he's walking home, you do see, and it's been happening the whole day, his whole journey. There has been this ghostly presence that has been saying his name.
Mm-hmm. Gust of wind comes in.
Gust of wind, like, and then you see like some of the lanterns, because obviously they don't have electricity. Bums.
Scrooge got all this money, no electricity though.
The lanterns change color, so like the fire goes blue for a second, and it switches back to red. And it just follows him all the way home. Mm-hmm. And then when it gets home, you see ice kind of form on the doorknob, and it's of a face.
Yes. Yeah.
And then so Scrooge is sitting there in his in I guess his living room, and you still see it, like, once again, classic Scrooge. It's bare. Yep. Obviously, big mansion for the times or whatever, but it was just like there's literally one chair in the middle of the room and outside the fireplace. There's no real pictures, no rugs, no nothing.
Yeah, it's just, and even other part, and this is something I love with Christmas Carol, the house is always run down too. Mm-hmm. It's huge, but besides like that one room he's in, there's cobwebs everywhere. There's like broken walls and stuff, because he just doesn't care to pay the money to upkeep, because he's living here, he's saving all of his money. He's a Scrooge.
So this is where he's visited by his old partner, Jacob Marley, and he's saying, you see, and this is what I will say for the animation. Yes. I did really enjoy the appearance of Jacob Marley coming in. So it's just like he kind of whooshes in through the fireplace. It's all blue in this ghostly spirit, and then like he's wrapped in chains, and all the chains are in like boxes.
Yep, the money boxes.
Yeah, and he just explains that, these are the chains that I accrued in my life because of my greed and because of my selfishness. And he was like, yours are even worse. Yeah. But he said, me and my friends, these are all the dead people that were greedy in life. And it was like, this is our burden. Yeah. But he's saying, but he pulled some strings. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, he pulled a link or some shit like that.
He pulled some links because he has chain links. Yeah. Puns are fun.
But he pulled some strings to have Scrooge visited by three, separate ghosts. One at, the first
one at one.
Yeah, 1 and 2, and then 1 and 3 actually. Yeah. To try to put him on the path of redemption. Yeah. It was like, there's still time.
Yeah. Well, some of these jokes fall flat. And that was something with the thought, like, because Ghost of Christmas Past we're coming up to, and like that one, he was like, well, 3. And I'm like, okay, that joke fell a little flat. I'm like, granted, I'm not 8 anymore. Maybe if I was 8, I think that was hysterical. But like now looking, I'm like, that wasn't funny. But I'm trying to keep that Christmas spirit and wonder. But yes, now 3 ghosts are coming to visit.
So at the first bells toll, one, you get the Ghost of Christmas Past.
Who's a candle.
And I think that was very interesting because it made it so that she could kind of shapeshift into like whoever she needed to be.
Because there was wax. So she's a wax candle, and the wax melts, and then whenever that wax melts, she can then take the form of whoever. She's still clearly a candle and has the wick, but that was an interesting take on it, which I did enjoy as well.
Yeah. And so initially, because obviously in disbelief, like you're being visited by ghosts as a human person. And so like she says, are you even real? So she just smacks him, which is what I would have done. Yeah. And she goes, the past can hurt, but it can also heal. And I was like, okay, that's deep. And then so she takes him back to the first memory of the past, which is of a very young Scrooge, around I want to say maybe 10 or something like that. Yeah. And he's working at some factory because his dad is in prison, in a debtor's prison, because he owed money. Yeah. And so he can't get out until he pays his debt. Yeah. And so he's working to provide for both his mother and his little sister.
Yeah. That was a cool change.
Yes. Because once again, like I said, I didn't get a chance to really go through.
Yeah. So in all the other Christmas carols, he goes to him like at boarding school, not hanging with his family. Yeah. Okay. He's in boarding school or not hanging with his family. His sister does come. Okay. Yeah, a little bit. And I hope I'm not saying this the wrong way. But yeah, so normally it's the boarding school. His sister still comes. We see his sister. That's nice. In this iteration, he's now working on Christmas Eve, trying to like pay money for his mother and sister, as you said, which is that was a nice change because it was like, okay, cool. We see that relatability aspect of it because again, we're humanizing Scrooge. Should we be doing this? I don't really know, but we are.
So he goes out, and right when he gets to his sister, because she's singing some song, she collapses, and you notice that she has the same sickness that Tiny Tim has. Yeah. So he tells her the same thing that
Bob, exact thing.
So it was like, just breathe, you'll be fine. So this is what I was saying earlier. It was just like, you went through the same shit. So how do you not automatically just feel for?
Yeah, have a little bit of empathy.
Yeah, it was just super weird.
I mean, you could argue that he's like, well, I overcame all of this, so why can't the rest of the world? But the movie really does like take a baseball bat and just like hit you upside the head with like, hey, they're the same. Yeah, like this is a similar situation, and I'm like, oh, I had no idea. Thank you for making it so apparent. But yeah, he should have empathy. If this is his experience with life, one would expect him to have a little more.
Especially because he immediately feels for Tiny Tim.
Yes.
So just like once again, it could have been one lesson. It was like, we could have cut this night short. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, literally we're like, oh crap, he's got the same thing my sister had. Oh man, go take this money. All right, let me buy you a goose.
But so then you do come to find out that his sister did not pass away from her illness. His dad was able to pay his debt and get her the medicine that she needed, so she did not pass away from this, even though she does pass away. So then it jumps to a young man, Scrooge. And he is, this is, I think, when he first started working with Marley. So
Fezziwig first.
No. Well, he was collecting money from that guy.
Yes, sir. He was collecting it for Marley. This was after he was working for Fezziwig.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like you meet him, and I think this is a young, like I said, a young man Scrooge, and he had started working for Marley after working for a very nice guy named Fezziwig. Because he felt that he needed something more stable because he was in love with Isabel, who is Fezziwig's daughter.
Yeah. Also a change. Because in other words, so in other Christmas Carol movies, he's working for Fezziwig, and that's one of his happiest Christmas memories. It's him working for Fezziwig. They're at the party. His fiance is not related to Fezziwig in other Christmas Carols or the original. In this one, they combined the two. Fezziwig, he's no longer working for. He used to, but Fezziwig's daughter is his fiance. But at this point in time, as you said, he left Fezziwig to work for Marley because Marley had more money.
Got it.
Yeah.
And he wants security.
Yes.
I think the biggest thing for him is security.
He wants security for his fiance.
And I think you can speak into that. It was like what his dad had to do with going in bed. He did, like, obviously if you grow up in a certain scenario, you try to make sure that never happens.
Yes.
So I think he wanted to make sure he never had to deal with poverty again. So like he's making strategic moves financially to make sure that doesn't happen. So I was like, I guess that's something.
Nice. That's a very redeeming quality of Scrooge. But he did do that in the other Christmas carols too. It's just the practice later on is when he then falls off.
Got it. Yeah. And so Fezziwig, Fezziwig and his wife noticed the romance brewing between.
They got their eyes at each other.
Yeah. I love also Fezziwig invites Scrooge to Christmas lunch or whatever because of the fact that like his sister is away with her husband.
Oh, right.
And he has no other family, and so he doesn't have plans. So they invite him to lunch, and like so he says, "Oh, I don't know, I have so much work to do," because he's obviously Marley works through Christmas.
Yeah,
and so Isabel like kind of holds his arm, and they kind of
and cover your eyes, children.
It's like, did she just fuck him in the middle of the street?
Well, back in 1848 England,
it was like she held his arm, and I was like, "You Jezebel!"
Exactly. Held the elbow. You saw a brief hint of ankle. All right.
It was just so funny. It was just like, what does this mean? I know it's 18, whatever. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like then you jump cut to he says because obviously he's there, he just can't interact with anything.
Yeah.
But he says he didn't want to be rude, so he went to the party, and you see him, like you said, it was his best Christmas. He's dancing, with Isabel, and then they do a slow dance and they do another number.
Yeah.
But you find out that this was his worst Christmas because of the fact that it's the Christmas that Harry was born. And also his sister died.
Yes. Yeah.
But he's still, I think they jumped it weird as far as the storytelling. Yeah. Because he does say that Isabel helped him through that time. But he was still like, I think he dove into his work after his sister's passing. But he still asked her to marry him or something like that. Obviously, it never happened, but he still asked her to marry him.
Yeah, they were engaged for a long time, he said.
Yeah, okay. And then I think you see two things. So one, you do see him go with Marley, go to shut down the Cratchit Bakery.
Yes.
And this is kind of his connection to...
this was dumb.
Kind of dumb, right? Because it doesn't make sense in the long run.
Yeah, this was the one thing that was really dumb.
So like Cratchit's dad owned a bakery.
Yep.
Obviously was in debt. Marley and Scrooge come and take that away.
Yes.
And Isabel sees this, and then she goes to Scrooge one Christmas or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And she sings to him, basically saying, like, asking, like, she wants to talk to him.
Yeah.
But he's just so wrapped up in his work that he ignores her and says later. And I think the name of the song is Later Never Comes.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that he tells her later and leaves with Marley. Yeah. And she tells him goodbye, and he never sees her again.
Yeah. Quick pause. This is like song number 8. By the time when you're just like, all right, wait. Really, Later was a decent song. This one was pretty decent, and maybe there's one more. But as a whole, a lot of these songs.
As far as storytelling wise, I like this one.
Yeah,
just because of the fact that it was because obviously she's Isabella's singing to Scrooge, but he's not hearing her. That was the whole point. He ignored her, and so the older Scrooge, is singing with her, knowing what's going to happen, knowing that he just, doesn't pay attention to her. And because of that, she kind of leaves her engagement ring and just leaves town forever. Yeah. And then you kind of see where she's at now. And she's happy. She has a husband. She has a family, which is interesting.
Past just throws that in his face too. Past is not nice to Scrooge.
But it was also interesting because of the fact that it was like, I guess he never followed up on it, because you find out later, like he said he's happy that she found the happiness that she deserves. So it was like something that he didn't even know.
Because he just focused on his work and doing whatever.
And also one thing that she noticed the past was that he dwelled on the bad things. A lot of his memories from the past, outside of the fact that being his favorite Christmas, he seems to dwell on the negatives of those scenarios. And then, so after you find out about Isabel and her saying goodbye to him, the bell tolls again, and now he's like, past has to go away because it's time for the next ghost to appear. And this one, very fine, but so you come into this other realm, and now it's the ghost of Christmas Present. He's very much like your Saint Nick, but in green.
I think this was one of my least favorite. In this movie especially, this was my least favorite, and this is one of my least favorite iterations of Ghost of Christmas Present. So much of the come now and be merry man of the other guy. And this one,
was Life is for the Living, which is fine.
I mean, this smooth looking, I wasn't a fan of him at all.
He does this big number, and then he takes him to see 2 Christmas celebrations at in the present. So the first one is to Harry's house, where he's surrounded by friends and the family that he's created.
And with his wife. Can I jump in real quick? Something I really appreciated with this movie, which was a good thing, representation was rock solid in this one, because you had the toy maker in the beginning. He was African American, black, the English American
orphan.
The orphan, then his wife Hella, Harry's wife Hella is Indian. So a lot more representation. It's not just a bunch of white people.
That was cool. So Harry's giving a toast, and he first gives a toast to Scrooge. And everybody was like, "What?" Really trying to get this man off the mic. And I think his explanation was heartfelt.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? Because he had never met his mother, obviously, but his dad told him stories of his mom and how much she loved Scrooge. So obviously, if his mother could love Scrooge, there's some goodness within him, and he's hoping to meet that guy one day. So I think that was cool. But it did seem like both of the Christmas celebrations that you see were leaned into Scrooge, and I think it was like, how do you lean into somebody you hate? I'm not gonna be at home talking about Kanye with my family. What shit is this?
That's true. I don't even know the last time I said that word.
But so it was I think it was cute to see once again Harry and both Cratchit, in a way, was just them being able to find the good in a scenario.
Now, Cratchit's dumb. Cratchit's not good with money. He's not good with family planning. And he's still just hey, guess what?
And it was so first his first toast was to Scrooge, and then to his mom.
Yes.
And and then you see how he's obviously very upset about it. But his wife, being a good wife and a good just woman in general, she just goes to cheer him up, because he's taking this toast to a turn for the worse. She's able to wrap it up.
He starts crying. I'm
the crying was fine, but it was just bruh. You brought up Scrooge and then your dead mom.
This is a downer of a party. We're well, thank you. It's been great. Thank you.
But she's able to cheer him up, which was very sweet, and also to see why they're together. And then you jump to the Cratchit family, and it is a very different setting. It's very kind of a one-room shack. There's about, I want to say, 8 kids. His wife,
14,
him, a baby on her arm,
kids,
a bunch of kids. But he is, and it was I think he made. I think there was stuffing and then a goose.
So Pretty decent. They were able to get some.
They were able to do something, but you definitely. And then he's also given a toast.
Yeah.
And the first thing he wants to give a toast to Scrooge, and then his family is
the provider of the feast.
Yeah. And he's like, "What?" And his wife is very much just like his daughter when he gave the money away to the Christmas Carol. He was like, "No, you earn that money."
Yeah.
And I think he's trying to once again. I think they. And I realize this now. It's more about the film itself and not the characters trying to humanize Scrooge.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, well, he didn't have to give us anything. It was like, yes, he did. You earned that.
Yeah, you earned that.
Yeah, like what?
In the other movies, like past Christmas carols, Cratchit still does give a toast to Scrooge and call him the provider of the feast, and his wife is still like, dude, what? No, absolutely not. But yeah, they really, it seems like above and beyond.
Yeah,
like really, like you have Harry and Cratchit, like they were like defending.
It was like as if they knew he was in the room.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was literally like that because in other Christmas carols they have no idea, and people make fun of Scrooge and this other part. So Scrooge learns a little bit because right now, if you look at it from like a lesson, Scrooge could be like, most of them don't like me, but at least those two like me.
Exactly,
so
and that's what he said. He was just like, well, Cratchit seems to really like me.
Yeah. It also makes no sense considering his father was, I don't know, whatever.
Yes,
maybe he doesn't know. Yeah.
What up? Do you find? No, he's found that out already.
You already found that out. Yeah.
He said, why does he? He even says, why is he working?
Yeah, because again, Scrooge and Marley put his father in debtor jail, and Cratchit still works for Scrooge anyway. So that was a weird connection, which didn't fully make sense. Yeah.
So then you jump right to the third ghost, which is I kept calling it Ghost of Christmas Future. It's a ghost of yet to come. Yes. Because future implies a kind of definite.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
So the ghost of yet to come.
Okay.
And so you see the Ghost of Christmas Present kind of transform into this kind of demon in a way.
That was pretty cool. Yeah. Demon.
And once again, I said, I enjoyed Marley's introduction and the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come introduction. It was really cool. Even his the Ghost of Christmas Present, his little sprites, kind of turn into little demons.
Yeah, little like demon sprites. Yeah,
which is really cool. And then so the first thing he sees, like Scrooge goes on his rant, but obviously, as if you know, I think this is from all iterations. Like the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come does not speak.
Nope.
It's a bunch of pointing.
Yeah.
So they go first, I think, right outside Scrooge's bank or his office, and you have Tom Jenkins there, really jolly, or whatever.
Very jolly. Yeah.
And they have this whole number of thanking Scrooge or whatever. So Scrooge is like on his high horse, like obviously I did something right.
Yeah.
And so, but Prudence, who's obviously been on the entire journey the whole time for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Prudence
was cute. Prudence was cute. Like her jumping into the portal after him, all this stuff. Prudence was funny. And she was, again, but it didn't make sense. But
so you do see Prudence notices that there's a cart with a coffin in it. And on that coffin is Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah.
And so this is why people are saying thank you, and all this stuff, because they're thankful that he's dead.
Yeah, and Scrooge has no idea. And he's like dancing.
Literally marching down his own funeral procession.
And he's like, they all like me. Yay. No, they're happy you're dead. Though I will say with this, dude, I honestly felt a little uncomfortable with Jenkins, right? Or when Jenkins jumps on Scrooge's casket and starts tap dancing. I was like, dude, that's whoa, man.
He owed the man 50 pounds.
Yo, man, that's not cool. I get it. Scrooge was not a nice guy. He literally laid on the casket and did one of these. I was like, bro, come on, that's a dead guy. That's not cool.
You're my enemy until you're forever and always.
I guess so.
So so the funeral proceeds into the cemetery, but Scrooge and the Ghost of Yet to Come jump, and you see Bob Cratchit, and he's obviously in tears with his daughter, and you see him at the grave of Tiny Tim, who is obviously succumbed to his illness.
Yeah,
and he says, I told your mother I would help with Christmas dinner, but I had to come see you. I'll come see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it hit Scrooge kind of hard, where he's just like, did he not get the help he needed? It was like, you know what you paid that man?
Exactly. Well, of course he didn't. You kicked a coin out of their hands, basically, in the beginning of the movie, bro. Yeah.
And then he finally sees, because they follow Jenkins and the cart to a grave.
Yep.
And you see that it's Scrooge's grave.
Yes.
And then it kind of hit Scrooge. It was like, well, why did... take me, but why does Tiny Tim have to die? And he said something that's very interesting, and this is why I said it wasn't Ghost of Christmas Futures, but he says, is this what will be or what may be?
Yes.
And it was obviously very interesting. There's time to... And it was like, you did notice that Scrooge, every time the bell tolled or whatever, wherever they were in the story, he kept looking at his watch.
Yes.
And it's kind of this sense that time is running out, but there's still time on the clock. In a way, which is, I think, very interesting. Kind of on the nose, but it was cool.
Yeah, baseball bat to the head. They make sure you get the message.
And so, like, the bell tolls, like, you see, like, Scrooge in hell, and, like, you kind of see his interactions throughout that day.
Yeah.
And it kind of jumps back to his past and things like that. And then he wakes up in his bedroom on Christmas Day. And he immediately, obviously it's Christmas Carol, so, like, he immediately has a change of heart. He goes to the orphans that he had kind of chased away earlier. And he gives them a bunch of invitations and a list of tasks to complete. And then when you jump back, his barren home, which was run down, has a Christmas tree. It has decorations. It's very lively now.
Orphans know how to patch drywall very well.
I mean, they're jacks of all trades.
Yeah, exactly. They got to be. Yeah.
So he is, tasked in with getting all these things, sending out all these invitations. He's like, and the orphan girl is like, I don't know if they'll come in such short notice. It is Christmas. But we did do it. And then he also invites them to stay and take gifts. And then the next scene, you see the people that he's invited. It's Bob Cratchit and his family, his nephew and his wife, Tom Jenkins, the carolers from earlier. And he's given them each one a gift. So he's given the carolers like £1,000.
Yeah, he'll like £1,000 a year for your charity for the rest of forever.
He's relieved Tom Jenkins of his debt. He's given Harry this doll that was his mother.
Yes, and that was the doll she made for him when they were children. That was a really touching.
That was really sweet.
And everything else was just terrible business decisions, but that was really sweet.
If I was Tom, it was just like, all right, so they get $1,000 in perpetuity. And you would leave me in this $50 debt.
Yeah, I'm like,
cool guy.
Thanks, man.
And then for Bob Cratchit, he makes him a partner.
Yes.
So that hopefully, like, he'll, in going forward, Tiny Tim will be able to get the medicine he needs. Bob will get the money he needs to provide for his family.
Provide for all of his Nick Cannon level number of kids.
What I will say was interesting what they did, and I don't know if it was like on the nose or whatever, but it was like, for every good deed he did, you saw like the future change. So it was just like
you mean in the credits you're talking about?
No. This is during when he gave Harry the doll in like the little purple glass. You saw that like you saw him next Christmas or maybe a future Christmas with Harry's son.
Or his montage going on.
So just like as he was doing these good deeds, you see that the future is changing, which once again, nothing was set in stone. It was like he still had time to make change. So obviously you see when he made Bob Cratchit a partner, Tiny, rather than kneeling at his Tiny Tim's grave, he's kneeling at Tiny Tim, running into his arms, meaning he's gotten the medicine he needed. And then I guess the movie just ends with, obviously Scrooge having this major change of heart. He's surrounded by, people that he cares about. And obviously, hopefully this will be the change going forward.
This last part of the movie felt really rushed.
It
was so like you have Ghost of Christmas Past. That was a smooth like 40 minutes of Ghost of Christmas Past, and then present, okay, future, faster, and then end was like, all right, cool, he's good now, keep it moving. And
I feel like they could have, because it was like, I can't remember in the original, but it was like, I know that he goes to Bob Cratchit's house and he still plays it up as if he's a bad guy. But I think it was really lazy. It was like, no, you guys come to me.
Exactly.
Can you imagine if like,
would you go? Would you go to this party? Like, if all of a sudden, this is for anybody, out of the blue, you get an invitation to a man's house who has been a total not nice guy for the entire time, and you're just like,
I'll see you on Boxing Day, my dude.
Yeah, do you go? Like, you have an entire Christmas plan already made, and you drop everything and go?
So, it was a little right, because they did lean into his past. Yes. And then, they leaned into the past.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And then they had to kind of rush the present and the future parts.
Yeah, exactly.
But that is the end of the movie.
And there you have it. That's
really quick.
That is Scrooge, A Christmas Carol. So we always like to just, before we close out, Mike, did your opinion of this movie change, your review, your scale, anything?
I'll still give it a 2, but I think I do appreciate more I'll look into it. Obviously, you know more than I do about the background, but the little elements that they added to his backstory, but it didn't help in the long run in the understanding of Scrooge. Yeah. Because you can't have this tragic backstory and then layer it with things and then be like, but he's still an asshole. It was like it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, still, I'll stick with the 2.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my rating too, as well. A 3 from purely children's movie. If you have a small child and you want to introduce them to A Christmas Carol, I think this is a great way to introduce them to it. They can definitely learn the lesson. There's funny stuff going behind with Prudence and little sprites from Ghost of the Present. There's funny things to keep a child entertained while they still learn this lesson. From a Christmas Carol iteration, yeah, it's going to be like a 1.5, 2, but it's okay. But a lot of songs could be a little better. Other stuff could be better. But hey, not bad. But yeah, and that is Scrooge A Christmas Carol. If you would like to reach out to us that are the Meddling Kids, please, we are 2 Meddling Kids on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and our Gmail is 2meddlingkids@gmail.com. If you'd like to reach out to Mike, how can they reach you?
Days from Legendary on Instagram.
Cool. And if you'd like to reach out to me, I am EdHunt77 on Twitter and Instagram. And we will see you next week. Thanks, everybody.